Creating evidence, health evidence from low and middle income countries to be used in COPs, for example, for loss and damage reparations, as we saw yesterday, and for climate and for loss and damage and reparation, and for climate justice, meaning lawsuits. We will hear more about this later. So health impact is the largest part of climate-related losses. So I quote an economist, not a health person, because you could say, well, he's speaking for his topic and it's the biggest topic on the planet. This is a slide from a World Bank economist who plotted the climate, you see, until 2020, and different curves in different colors. And the colors are not different. They are different scenarios, climate scenarios, and they take into account different parts of climate change. So the pink one is just a baseline climate and only market impacts. Market impacts do not capture health. They capture health expenditures. And they are very low in low and middle income countries. The yellow one is high climate, market impacts and risk of catastrophe, the famous events. And the red one is the important one. It's plus the damage to population health. And you see the distance from 7.3 to 13.8 minus GDP is enormous. So health is the largest part of damage from climate change. Some numbers, and we know not much about it, particularly not from low and middle income countries, so bear with me. A recent review showed that 37% of global health-related deaths are from climate change. The Lancet Countdown just came out a couple of weeks ago, estimates 550 million, 500,000, I'm sorry, the million has to go, deaths per year. So you notice it's only death that's counted. These are the low-hanging fruit if one looks for damage. But there are many more problems with death only. More and more chronic diseases, and we'll hear more from my friend Xavier Duvant, more and more in low middle income countries, diabetes and the non-communicable diseases overtake the poverty-related diseases like malnutrition and infectious diseases. And they damage health before killing them. It's a little bit sharp, but it's true. You have, for example, a stroke. The average year to survive a stroke is 3 years. You suffer, you're paralyzed. Nobody notices, no health statistics. Only when you die, you become a statistic. So the statistics are very dangerously misleading, only looking at death because it's easier to count. So the largest damage to health from climate change is on morbidity. And we need to find a way to measure what's called the years of healthy life lived with a disease, not dying from a disease. The famous YLDs. So we need to quantify this burden for low and middle income countries to use that evidence for the policy and for the legal work we are doing. And also, health data are mostly coming from statistics of health services in low and middle income countries, and they are notoriously biased. Sorry about this. From health services. Population-based core data are rare, so the data are service-based, not population-based, and not all people or the minority of people in the poorest countries go to health services if they are sick, and 95% of statistics are counting death only. So the burden of chronic disease remains unaccounted for. Chronic diseases are the largest part of climate-imposed health damage, and we have a data problem here. The other deficiency is that we don't have local climate data. It's not enough to take it from the nearest meteorological station, which may be 100 kilometers away in some countries, but you need to synchronously measure this inside the cohort. And we hear more of this from Sandra. So we have or just beginning to have cohorts that take morbidity, death, and climate data synchronously into account to come up with the burden of climate-related total years burden of disease. What you don't count doesn't count. It's a famous adage, and it's true here. If you don't count the misery, it remains invisible. Thank God there are a number of these, 70 and counting of these cohorts. You see here the bars from 1960, Bangladesh, ICDRB, some of you know it, till 2021. This is more than 60 years of a cohort of 200,000 in this case, followed up to health, mainly death, yes, but now we are trying to add the morbidity and add the climate to these cohorts. And these cohorts represent 150 million person years observed for those who are into this business of epidemiology. And the green bars are the African cohorts, and the yellow bars are the Asian cohorts. So it's in both big areas where you have LMICs. You see here a map, and the red stacks are those which are transformed into what we call CHEERS, Climate and Health Evaluation and Early Warning Systems, which have all the necessary data components which I just quoted. And now coming to the climate policy here. You know that mitigation 10 years ago was the big topic of the Paris COP. Then adaptation came because we realized that it won't happen enough. And now we are into loss and damage from 2028, COP28 and 29 onwards. So from climate policy, research or evidence to climate policy applications. That's the gist of our talk. Total burden of disease, that's the last slide. Total burden of disease is what I just described, morbidity and mortality. Then we have to attribute the percentage from climate change. We have meteorological data from on-site. Then we have health losses and damage from climate change. We, as health epidemiologists, we like to keep it in years of life lost. But in order to mobilize these data for litigation and for climate policy, loss and damage fund, adaptation fund, we need to convert them into dollars. I'm very sorry. We have to speak the language of the ones that we are pushing. And that the WHO has ways to do this with all the caveats, and this is not the difficult part. You can do research, but then you have health loss and damages in dollars. For climate policy, for example, COPs, reparation, and then for litigation, financial compensation, and then for litigation. So here you have the tableau of our talk, where we have a strong emphasis on chronic non-communicable diseases because they are the most important diseases to be damaged. And our side event program, just a quick outlook, it's a little bit not so, you have it maybe from the flyer. Here is the program as in the flyer, and we follow this, but just to help you navigate, population-based comprehensive health and climate data is my presentation. Dr. Ali Sieh from Luna in Burkina Faso and Dr. Sandra Bartlett here. We talk about this system, how we can collect these data. Then we have another set of very esteemed person here, Xavier Jouron, with us in the panel, talks about putting climate-sensitive chronic diseases on the map. And there's also a presentation from Dr. Roland Guetta from Ivory Coast, if I'm not, no, from Senegal? Ivory Coast, yeah. And then finally, we have a panel for policy relevance. Professor Yakub Yanabi from Africa couldn't come, sorry about this, we couldn't also appear by screen. Maximilian Jungmann is here in the panel with the glasses in the middle. How to use these information for access to funds. And Dr. Charlotte Halpern, she's here, or waving there, is also from, and of course, analyse the tool, they are both talking about from knowledge to action. So this is the logic red thread of our presentation.